Welcome to the Sharpe Club this evening. I appreciate you all coming to talk to me this evening. It is amazing. So happy. I'm glad you're here because I have a very interesting evening. I want to talk about a topic that people have been talking about for a long time. The idea of can you go too woke? How much is woke enough? There's good things about woke, right? And there's bad things about woke too. So what's woke enough? And I have a panel here to talk to me about this, people who are really going to be some good comments. The first person I'm bringing in, he is a political commentator from New York State, the man himself, Michael Vasquez, also known as Michael Vass. His podcast is No Soundbites Allowed. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. It's always good to be with you, Larry, my fellow Marine, my fellow Bronxite. Hey, I'm always happy to be here with you.
Absolutely. Happy to have you here, brother. Also, if I could, I want to bring along he is a journalist. He is a comedian. And he is also a former gubernatorial candidate for this great state of Ohio, a man after my own heart, the man himself, Travis Irvine. How are you, sir?
Hello, Larry. Always good to be with you. Good to see you again.
There we go. And finally, a woman who I adore. She is funny and she is smart too. Is it possible? It is. She is an award-winning author and journalist, woman herself, Julia Robertson. How are you?
Hey, good to see you.
I am glad that the gang is all here. I think the most important thing I want to bring up here is the idea of how woke is too woke. The world is going woke. I think we see that, right? A lot of people are doing it. They're going there. And there's some good things to it. I think some people would agree that kind of being more aware of things is a nice thing. But how far to Michael, you already saying no. So
No.
You're saying there's no good thing to woke at all? None?
None whatsoever.
None. Okay. Tell me why.
Well, we have to think of what is woke. First of all,
Okay.
You can never be woke enough. And the reason why is because it is a system of control. It is meant to suppress people's voices and to make them obey without thought or without influence. And when we understand it as that's what it is, because it encapsulates identity politics and gender identity politics, the CRT. It goes back to 1996. I mean, this thing has been happening for a long time. It is a system of limiting thought, which is limiting speech, and it is a system of control.
I get what you're saying, right? I do think it absolutely limits thought and limits speech. I agree completely. But isn't there a level of, how do I explain this? Don't I want to be able to openly acknowledge people who are different, right? Whatever that difference may be, whether that is racial, ethnic, gender, sexuality, insert thing here, right? Whatever is, maybe we should be inserting things when it comes to gender and sexuality. But anyway, whatever the case may be, right? Don't I want to be able to at least acknowledge these people? Say, yes, they exist, they are around, blah, blah. Isn't that a good aspect of what I would say when I was a kid, we didn't really have, right? When I was a kid, there wasn't a such thing as, for example, trans. That wasn't a thing. I mean, I'm sure they existed, but I'm just saying in my head, it wasn't a thing, right? And gay people, when I was a kid, was only gay men, right? That's how I thought. There were no lesbians. It wasn't a thing when I was a kid, right? Obviously they existed, but I'm saying in my social world, they didn't. Am I wrong on this? Julia, give me something. Am I wrong on this?
As your resident lesbian, I would like to add something here.
Please.
Well, you're not too far off by saying it's something you didn't see. Most of us didn't see it growing up because it wasn't really a thing. I went to, and I've told you this before, I think, I went to the gayest school imaginable here in New York, and we had a LGB union. I didn't know any people who were trans or identified as trans. It wasn't, I mean, you saw it on like Jerry Springer, you saw it in like, you saw it, I guess, in prostitution. You saw it in places like niche places like San Francisco starting to kind of get cracking. Like one of a friend of mine, Buck Angel, is one of the first,
yes.
Yeah, like, one of the first to undergo that sort of thing. So it's all fairly new. So you're not too far off in saying that. How woke is too woke? We hit woke, too woke, like at least 5 to 10 years ago. I think about 5
Okay.
years ago. 2015 is like, woo,
That was the end. We should have stopped like 2014, and we should have stopped.
we
Okay.
lost it. And
Okay.
it became a lot of indoctrination, mind control.
Yes. That I saw. And that was my
Yeah.
worry, right? When I first saw this happening, I wasn't necessarily against it. I was like, okay, this is fine. But the problem that I have, and I live in New York City, raised in New York City. For me, as a youngster, I often felt like the war's kind of over, right? I mean, this gay thing, this ethnic thing, it's kind of over, right? No, not outside New York City. It's not. But in New York City, like nobody cared, right? In my view, right? Maybe it's because who I was hanging out with. Nobody cared if you were gay or trans or black or white. Nobody cared whether you were Jewish or Muslim. We didn't care about any of those things. It wasn't the thing. In fact, we would tease you about it, right? We would tease you about it because you were it, and we teased you because we loved you, not because we were angry at you. We teased you because we loved you, and you would tease us just right back, just as hard because you loved us. That's kind of how I saw it. Now I feel like you can't even tease.
The comedians are in trouble.
You're a comedian, Travis.
Yeah.
You got to feel this.
Oh yeah, no, it's everywhere. It is interesting. It does come a lot from your background. It was interesting hearing everyone else speak about their own experiences growing up. I mean, New York City, it's very diverse. I mean, it's hard to be anti-woke in New York City. You'll be exhausted. But for me, I grew up in a Jewish suburb of Columbus, Ohio. And so I went to a predominantly Jewish public school. And that was very good.
I didn't know there were any Jews in Ohio. I had no idea.
There are small pockets. Cleveland has a suburb, Cincinnati has a suburb, and Columbus has a suburb, and that's about it. But it was very good in learning tolerance, learning different cultures. It was great for comedy because my Jewish friends were always the funniest people in school, so that was nice. Unlike you, Larry, I mean, we slowly learned about gay people. Obviously, it was a predominantly white suburb, so we had to learn more about racial disparities as we got older. I didn't really learn about lesbians until maybe high school, and then I really researched them in college. I was very proud of myself for that.
Yes, I can imagine. Yes.
Really trying to build some bridges here. But to your point, again, when is woke too woke? I'm glad I grew up in a tolerant, different type of suburb than a lot of the other suburbs in Ohio. I mean, I'm wearing this shirt right here for a reason. Ohio is a lot of the places are very the same. So I'm very happy I grew up somewhere different. But, I also don't go around and try to tell everyone else, hey, you all need to be more receptive to the cultures that I grew up with. That's kind of on everyone to kind of work together to get there.
Go ahead, Michael.
Something I noticed, there's a difference in ages, of course, and different areas we all lived in. Like you, Larry, we're a little more mature than perhaps a couple of our co-hosts here. And I also was born in New York City, but I've lived across the country, both sides, lived overseas in Moscow. And it's interesting, in my lifetime, I can remember back in the mid 80s, the early 90s, there were none of these problems. You didn't need to be woke. You just need to be a human being. We understood, and we could speak with each other and have conversations, and people were aware. It wasn't the front line news because no one cared. It was your life. And if your life wasn't interfering with my life, no one cared. And when I went over to Moscow during the time of the coup, 91, 92, I lived there for a year and a half. And I'm the only black guy over there. And I can tell you, all of this woke stuff, everything that's been happening since about 96 and building up since then, no one else in the world knows what this is. This is an American idea being exported around the world. Everyone else looks at this and goes, you're stupid. This is insane. We're spending hundreds of millions of dollars to try and convince the rest of the world to try and do what we're doing here. And it's not working here because we're going backwards in time, not forward.
Yes. You know what's funny? You said that. Like I watch 80s movies and 90s movies with my kids, right? And my kids are young or younger, right? My oldest daughter's 19. My youngest one's 13. So we watch a movie like, I don't know, Terminator or something like that from the 80s. And the Terminator 2 is better. Terminator 2, that one. And Sarah Connor is a badass woman who's out there as a protagonist, and she's killing it, right? She's doing a great job. And the police chief, he's black. Right. So everyone's mixed and no one cares. Don't get me wrong. It was still Schwarzenegger and those guys still, they're all the the top guys, but still we had tons. I remember in the 70s, and you might remember this one, Michael, you might remember this. Remember the series, TV series Soap on ABC back in the 70s?
It was brilliant.
Yes, and there was a gay character.
Yeah.
Yes.
You had everyone. You had gay characters, black. You had interracial marriages. You had everything on Soap.
The Jeffersons had interracial marriage.
Yeah.
In the 70s. So we were already moving in the right direction. I mean, don't look around. It was not perfect. The 80s and the 70s were not. I'm not like nostalgia, like back in my day, you youngsters. I'm not doing that.
Yeah,
I'm
but
just saying.
All in the Family, the whole point of that show was Archie Bunker is a bigot, and every episode is showing how his worldview was wrong.
Yes.
Everyone could watch it and everyone could acknowledge it. And we moved forward and said, yeah, that makes sense.
Yes.
You can't say that about She-Hulk. You can't say that about
Ms.
Marvel, Velma, Captain Marvel, Last of Us 2, Black Panther.
Yeah, but hold on, let me touch that piece. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Julia, too. I feel like as Netflix, to Michael's point, and like HBO, as they move towards what I call forced wokeism, right? It's like you're taking the old character and now making them something else and forcing it versus just writing a new story, right? Just write a new story, right? And the issue is you can make an awesome character, and that character can happen to be gay or happen to be trans or happen to be black or happen to be Hispanic or whatever, but you first write a good character. They don't do that. They say, well, that's a good character. Let's make he a she, or let's make black guy, white guy, or white guy, black guy, like that. I mean, where's your head on this, Julie?
Well, there's an issue of transing the dead, which I write about a lot. So they've gone back and they found old lesbians that broke the rules or, were non-conforming, which is most lesbians are non-conforming. And they've trans them. So they go, oh, well, this person will just make them trans. So they've trans the dead, which is a huge issue of contention in the lesbian community. They skipped right over the fitting the stereotypes of what might be called like the butch lesbian. They skipped right over that. You never ever saw. I actually have an article that went out on 3 platforms. One of them was Huffington Post, and it was 100 times you see girl on TV, and where are the butch lesbians. So it's this complete erasure of this aspect of lesbian, which is not just a small aspect. When I was in school, you didn't see a lot of fitting the stereotypes of what would be considered feminine. You didn't see a lot of femme lesbians out there. You saw more of like the androgynous lesbian, the rule breaking lesbian, the one flipping off the patriarchy with the short hair, like, so to skip over that seems really crazy. L Word addressed it at one point and they were like, well, we didn't want, we just wanted girly girls on the L Word. Well, that's just not a realistic interpretation of lesbian culture. That's your own fantasy of maybe what you want it to be or what people want it to be, but it's
maybe what a lot of men want to see.
Right. So they've
maybe a lot of men want to see hot women, on each other. Maybe they don't want. Maybe the men don't want to be trying to make the men happy on this one, right?
Maybe it would have brought some acceptance to the lesbian community to have hot women with short hair and not wearing lipstick. Maybe that would have brought more acceptance, but they skipped right over that and said, plopped the label on it and said, well, this is trans. And then next thing you knew, you skipped over the butch. You never saw the butch lesbian, which would have been a priority. And now you just see the trans characters.
It's funny you say that, right? Because I felt like, and if it were me, right? I'm not a woman, but if I was a woman, I'd be mad at this. If I was a woman, I'd be mad at this if I was a woman. I'm like, you're taking away, you're erasing us even more now, right? Because now all these powerful gay women of the past, to your point, they were erasing them, saying they weren't gay, they were trans now. Now, my other worry on this is not just for the past. I mean, the past is bad, but I've heard other activists, gay activists, both male and female, say publicly and tell me that they're worried because as you start making gay automatically trans, you're kind of erasing gay.
You're absolutely erasing.
Yes, and when someone is young, they might just be gay and they don't know any better. And so now you're kind of pushing the trans piece. Their worry is, this is not my world. So maybe you
I
can help
love
me on
that
this.
you got to my point, because that's where I was going with this.
Oh, there we go. Keep
exactly
going.
Where
please.
I was going. No, do it. You got it. You got this.
Yes. So my worry is that now I have youngsters who are just confused, right? As many youngsters are, right? I've had kids. I watched my kids become confused, right? It's normal. Most of us, as we got older, weren't sure what we liked, what we didn't like, who we were. It's a common problem that most adults have. But if my kid is gay, I don't want my kid to be trans. I want to be gay. I want my kid to be trans if they're trans, right? I don't want them to be shifted either way. Or maybe they're confused and they're actually straight. I don't know. Maybe they're whatever they are.
And the trans kid is a creation. It's a creation that was developed. It's not like we grew up in school and there were trans kids left and right.
There were no trans kids when I grew up. None.
If you don't give a kid to reach chance to reach full cognitive brain development, you're in a lot of trouble. Don't get me started on cognitive brain development, Larry.
Okay, all right. Go ahead, Michael.
You're in a lot of trouble if you don't let them reach full cognitive brain development. And now you've gone ahead and in the United States at age 12, 13, you're giving double mastectomies to children. You're putting them on hormones really young. They're going to come out of it and be like, don't get me started, because you know.
No, I want Michael to go. Michael's chomping at the bit. Go ahead, Michael.
You're dead on, JD, because it's so true that this is about a conditioning of minds. And notice everything we can point at in the woke system from 1996 to today, from Moesha to where we're seeing today with Velma, every single aspect isn't targeting anyone here and most of the people watching this today. It's targeting your children.
Yep.
It is trying to teach them to obey, to conform, to fit into the boxes, the categories someone else has created and someone else has prioritized for their political gain. That's at the end of the day, that's all woke is. It is a prioritization for someone, a political elite, to maintain power and to take away any question or objection or problem. And we see that. That's why you see M&Ms. That's why you see Coca-Cola saying, oh, you've got to do a white privilege training. Why in the hell do you need to do that? Why do you need to apologize for the color of your skin? Why do you have to apologize for your sexuality? They're trying to we see on TikTok all the time. There's been a couple of videos about people putting out TikToks, they're trans, and they're like, no one wants to date me. You have to date me or you're a transphobe. Wait a minute. Why do I have to date you? I don't have to. JD, you don't have to date someone who's trans and you're a lesbian. I'm a straight man. I don't have to do it. No one has to be forced to go and live or love someone that they don't want to. That's the
Agreed.
whole point. And yet we're teaching kids today and we're pushing it out in all the media.
What if I don't like tall girls? What if I don't like skinny girls? Which I don't like. Sorry, guys, girls, if you're out there skinny, you're not my type. I like girls who are a little thick. I that's my thing. I like women who are a little thick. I do. So now am I a skinny phobe? Is that me now?
According to woke, yes, you are.
I guess I am. I'm a skinny.
Well, it's also rooted in homophobia, and they first started attacking lesbians before anybody else because we were maybe seen as the weakest link. They first started attacking us for not considering men who identify as trans into our dating pool. That is the epitome of homophobia. As soon as you start to tell me that I should go against my innate same-sex attraction so that I make you happy.
You told me something, Julia, a while ago, which really made me think. I'd never thought of it this way till you told me this. You said there's a difference between being homosexual and homogenderal or something like that.
Right? I remember we had that talk.
Yes, like in my head, that didn't until you told me that. That's like, oh yeah. So so I get it. Look, you don't want a penis or you don't want a vagina. I got it. Like you don't have to want one of those. It's okay if you don't, right? It's totally fine. It's you like what you like. It doesn't matter what the person's outside may be. Their genitalia does matter to you.
Of course, yeah. That's it's called homosexuality for a reason. It's related to sex. Gender is a concept. Sex is biology, and gender is what stereotypes do you fit. Well, I really don't care what stereotypes you fit. Because I'm homosexual.
Got it.
If you eat the right sex and anyone attacks me about that, then that's just pure homophobia.
Well, there we go. Let me grab if I could. I'm sorry. 1 second, Travis. This is a super chat, guys. Thank you for the super chats. If you want a super chat, you can head over to Larry Sharpe YouTube and super chat if you want to. Joe says this woke problem. The way you get rid of it is voting conservative or libertarian. People that don't do this don't want change. I get his point. I am clearly biased as a libertarian, so I would say vote libertarian. I'm blatantly biased, but I think Joe's point is a valid point. And this goes to a second piece I'm going to bring up here, which is if we don't change how we vote, what both sides do is the Republicans tend to just go, I'm anti-woke, so vote for me. And Democrats go, I'm super woke, so vote for me.
Yep.
But none of them fix any of our problems.
Exactly.
So, go ahead, Travis.
Right. Yeah, well, I mean, you all are bringing up a lot of great points. Obviously, as the straight white male on the panel, I got to be careful of what I say, or the woke crowd will come after me. But, in terms of the question of the show, how woke is too woke, it's almost like if you're working on yourself, if it's coming from your own personal place, you can be as woke as you want. I think where you get in trouble is if you push your wokeness upon others, right? Nice. And that's, again, Larry and I have both been libertarian candidates. I remember in 2010 going around running for Congress in Ohio and talking to people about gay marriage and how the government shouldn't be involved in the institution at all. And I got pushback from both sides. Republicans, obviously, thinking it was a little too soon for something like that. But even Democrats back then, you remember, Joe Biden, when he was vice president, he still only supported defining marriage as between a man and a woman.
I remember.
Right. There's the one thing he and Sarah Palin agreed on in the vice presidential debate. So as libertarians, we've been, I don't want to say we've been pushing a woke agenda, but we've been trying to get people to be more inclusive. The Libertarian Party ran an openly gay man for president as far back as 1972.
Absolutely.
So it's interesting because
our first presidential nominee was gay. That's true. Yep.
And the first openly gay person to receive an electoral vote, of course, as well, from the rogue elector in that election. So again, if you're just pushing, if you're out there saying, I think I can do better, or the people around me can do better, I think that's one thing. When you start making policies, corporate policies, government policies, and forcing that ideology on others, that's when you've gone too woke, too fast, too far.
It's too woke for me. When we're talking about this, because this is all about, again, it's about manipulation. It's about control. We're saying they are targeting, and the aspect of what most people notice the most is either your presentation or your sexuality. Those are the two easy ones to identify.
Right.
But think of what they're doing right now. In the name of woke, that you must accept, unless if you don't, you are evil. Patently, by definition, you are evil. You cannot complain about this. They wanted to convince everyone that an 8-year-old, 11-year-old, a 13-year-old should be able to make the decision to chop off their genitals before they have had the chance to develop and identify themselves, whether they're gay, they're straight, they're trans, whatever they may wind up being. Before they can even understand that concept, they're telling them to chop off their genitals, to permanently mutilate their bodies forever because someone else said, oh, you don't get the choice. You don't even get the conversation. You just have to do what we have now categorized you as. You fit this box. That's what you are forever. How is this helping anyone? God help us what's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years. Because
it's an issue here, Michael, I want to bring up here. It's because it's too far left or too far right. There's a difference between affirmation and acceptance. There's a difference, right? When my daughter comes to me and says, Daddy, I think I may be a boy, I do not want to say, great, you are a boy. Absolutely. Let's change your clothes and blah, blah, blah. No, I want to go, okay, great. Go to school. That's it. Like, I accept what she is, right? What she's thinking now. Daddy, I want short hair. Okay, get a haircut. That doesn't mean you're a boy. It means you want short hair, or it means you think you're a boy, or maybe you like girls. So you think, oh, I must be a boy because I like girls. So all I'm going to say is, okay, I'm not going to affirm that you are a boy. I'm going to accept whatever you feel and move on. And when my daughters came home from school thinking all types of things, all I said was, okay, awesome. You want to change your clothes? wear the clothes you want. I gave my daughters all types of toys. And I remember the difference in my two girls. I gave them both trains. And one of my girls used the trains like the trains to use, right? And the other one took the train and made them dolls. I was like, no, I'm a train. So one made them dolls, one made them a train. I didn't care. I wasn't mad. I didn't care. Okay, that's who you are. Let's keep going. So I think we do want to accept people for their issues and concerns.
Yes.
But what your point is, Michael, is we now have parents who, if you don't affirm what an 8-year-old says, literally taking away the parental ability of a parent, right? Taking their responsibility away. You don't accept what an 8-year-old says, you're evil. I'm blown away by this, Michael. I guess I'm just pushing more on what you just said because you're completely correct.
You're absolutely on there. And I think that's detrimental to, it is absolutely detrimental to the child. Of course, it is a form of child abuse, but it's also absolutely antithetical to the LGBTQ. It's antithetical to our society. It's antithetical to our interactions with the rest of the world. And it is something that multiplies over time because it doesn't just stop with that 8-year-old. Now that 8-year-old is going to become an 18-year-old. It's going to become a 28-year-old, a 48-year-old. And all of the problems, all of the baggage, all of the issues catapult all the way through. And we haven't thought about that. And I think that's really bad for our society, whether you're gay, straight, trans, you want to tell me you're a toaster, I don't care. The bigger issue is you didn't never get a choice.
You know what's funny? And when I my first campaign in 2018, I had a trans woman on my team, and people asked me, "Is she into guys or girls?" And I said, "I don't know." Like, what do you mean? I said, "I don't know." Well, did she have operation? I said, "I don't know." Like, what do you mean? Because it's none of my goddamn business is why, right? So no, I don't ask those questions, right? I didn't care. She was trans. Okay, fine. Right? I didn't care. I didn't have to ask the question to go down. Maybe she was into guys. I don't know. But I'm not dating her, so why do I care, right? Does he have genitalia? I don't know. I'm not dating her, so why do I care? If I was dating her, I would care both of those things, obviously. But I'm not dating her, so why do I care? And this goes back to my point, Michael. I didn't care. And what if she came back later and said, I'm no longer trans? Okay. What if she said I was gay? Okay. It's not an issue. That's my idea of acceptance versus affirmation. I don't have to affirm anything. I have to accept you for who you are and move on.
Right.
Michael, I gotta also jump in here because this is my wheelhouse right now. Back in like 2017, I was the first to say publicly, using my own real name and face, there were only about 10 women at the time doing this, maybe less, I would say. I have to go back and look. It was like Magdalene Burns. I gotta go through the small list. Megan Murphy, Claire Hushin, Ariel Scarcella. There were a few of us calling an alarm. And my alarm was to this issue with kids. And it was actually, this is astounding to me to this day. It was me, not a doctor, who was the first to say, hello. And I drew a connection between the ethics of transitioning a child as it specifically relates to what we know about cognitive brain development. Why didn't a doctor bring this up sooner? And then from there, 2 or 3 doctors that were following my page, they started to catch on, and eventually they wrote about it and talked about it. But I was like, how did this get by in the medical community for this long? We all know that kids do not reach full cognitive brain development until about 25 years old. The part of the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that understands consequences, the part of the brain that understands repercussion, the part of the brain that forms a sense of identity. How did we not ever question what we were doing to kids? And why did a writer, have to be the first to bring it up? Where were the doctors in all of this? Now, this is
they
back
were
in
afraid,
2017.
Julia. They were afraid, Julia.
They were afraid, and I got in a lot of trouble. I watched my writing career go up in flames. My book got pulled off of the shelves. I mean, but you know what? I came at it like, what? Bring it. My tagline said, I've seen bombs and war. Tell me all about your triggers. I did not care. I was just like, this needs to stop. We all know that this is scientifically incorrect. We all know that 80% of these kids or more would actually grow up to be LGBT or straight if allowed to reach full cognitive brain development. We all know this. It's in the scientific data, statistically speaking. So basically, you're looking at gay conversion therapy.
Wow, gay conversion therapy. All right. With that, hold on one second, guys. If you guys, this is to the audience, if you're watching and listening, you like this, please hit the like button. If you haven't hit it yet, do it now. It does matter. It gets past all these algorithms that I have to get past and get around as you try to cancel us all. I think everybody on this who's here has been canceled at least once. Michael probably 17 times, but I'm sure we've all been canceled at least once. So let's do that. And also, do me one more favor then. Follow these people on Twitter. You can head to Travis Irvine USA to follow Travis, MV Consult to follow Michael, and you can head over to Julia D. Robertson to follow Julia on Twitter. And you can see other things they're doing. Julia has things she writes. So does Travis. He's got a movie out. Michael's got the No Soundbites Allowed. You can follow all those things if you would. I'd appreciate it tremendously. It does matter. Please do that so that we can support the guys who are out here doing the work for us. Thank you so much. So go ahead, Travis. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, everyone's making a lot of good points. And again, as a comedian, as a straight white male, I don't claim to know that I even have full brain cognitive development yet myself. I won't claim to have that. But you're all bringing up so many interesting points. I mean, again, it reminds me of another New York City politician, Ed Koch, who privately many people knew he was gay, but when he was asked publicly, when he was asked publicly about it, he was like, it's no one's damn business, right?
Yep.
So again, in terms
of... We all knew he was gay. We all knew he was gay, and we still voted for him.
Absolutely, because he did a good job. And,
and
he didn't even necessarily want to be labeled one way or another. He just wanted to be Ed Koch, you know, the real deal from New York. But you guys are bringing up some interesting points just in terms of kids. And I think that's why, you know, this woke conversation is reaching such a fevered pitch. I mean, I don't have kids that I know of. And I think what you guys are bringing up, again, is the fact that what we have in schools is school districts, teachers, administrators trying to do one thing. And as I'm listening to Larry, first of all, we've heard for the first time that Larry is officially trying to raise his kids as trained sexuals. I think that's a little controversial. You cannot train your kids like that. You cannot choose your gender, Larry. This is a big controversy. All right. I've been sitting on those dumb jokes for a second.
I love it. Don't stop.
In all seriousness, this is why I think the woke culture is reaching such a fevered pitch right now. You're seeing PTO parents, people who go to PTO meetings. These are the folks who are showing up to vote. That's what we learned with the Glenn Youngkin race in Virginia. And I think that's why, again, this woke conversation is getting to the point where we are now, because people, again, like we said earlier, they're taking their own wokeness and they're trying to force it upon, and to your point, kids who necessarily don't know any better, any which way or the other.
Yeah, it's funny you said that, right? You were talking about the idea of why do we need, you know, diversity training in businesses and such like that, right? And that's what I do for a living. Like, I train businesses for a living. It's what I do. But my training in diversity and inclusion is not about race or gender. It's about emotional intelligence and understanding people and understanding the difference between impact and intent, right? That's what it's about. They don't want that anymore. Like, they don't want what I'm telling. I got to sell all the stuff. They don't want that anymore. They want me to go in and say, Black people say this, Asian people say this, lesbians say this, gay people say this, everybody says that. They want me to say that. And intent doesn't matter. All that matters is impact. And if someone feels bad, you are by default evil. They want me to say that now. And I'm like, I guess I don't do this anymore. So it really has changed, right? When I do my training on this, I discuss the difference between impact and intent. And the only way someone learns is if they understand what their intent was and what the impact was. The person saying the thing has to understand the impact because they think their intent was good. The person receiving understands only the impact, but doesn't understand the intent. So neither people can't join until they both understand themselves. And the problem people say is, well, you're letting the bigot get away from it. No, if you ask a bigot, and I'll tell you a quick story. I don't mean to go nuts, but it's a story on, I was doing a gender issues session. This is probably 10 years ago or more. And some difference in how people talk, what you do, those types of things, how to handle these things. And it was an accounting firm. And the guy who ran the accounting firm was an older guy in his 70s. And this is probably 10 years ago. So now he's in his 80s. So during a break, he gets on the phone And while he's on the phone, people hear him. And he says this phrase. He goes, yeah, sure, of course. I'll have my girl send it right over to you. Now, yes. Now, when he said that, right, a bunch of professional women in his accounting firm, tons of them, educated professional women, heard that. So when he came back to the table, one woman, without me saying a word, I wish I had planned this. I did not. This was just luck. She says, do you know how that girl comment made us feel? That's all she said. And you could see his brain in his face go from, like he didn't get it until she said it. Now, I will and I defended him when I said, look, when he came up, that was literally the name of the title. For those of you who don't know, those that aren't as old as I am, back in the 70s, your job title was office girl. Oh. That was literally your job. Michael knows. That was literally your job title. That was on your resume, office girl. When he came up, that was the title. So I'm not saying what he said was correct. I'm not. I'm saying understand where his head was, and he needs to change his habits. He has bad habits that he should change, because those words now in the 60s and 70s, who cared? Today, well, this is 10 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, now that matters. You have to change your language. And her saying that made him realize it, and he began to realize. He said, I'm sorry, I didn't realize. It's not what I meant. But in today's world, what would have happened is he'd turn around and she'd have said, you're a horrible misogynist, you bigot. How could you say those words? And when she says that, what he would have done is become immediately defensive, immediately learn nothing, be mad at her, and because he was the boss, a year from now, she's fired. Yeah, that's what would have happened. No doubt, because people don't want to understand. But what happened, all of a sudden, he would have had one of his managers give her a bad review. A year later, she's gone. That's how it actually works in reality. Yeah. And what I'm saying is, and it's making things worse. I have people I know to this day. If you're in a small business, I know people right now in small business owners who will not hire certain people for fear of lawsuit. Literally won't hire them for fear of lawsuit. Literally won't. Tell us. I'm not telling you who it is.
Tell us more.
But there are many who simply, because here's the problem. The laws are meant to crush big business. And big business can absorb it. They have employee handbooks. They have HR. They have lawyers. But you're a small business, one lawsuit, you're finished.
You're done.
You're finished. Yeah. It's the end of your business. You're done. So they're afraid. So they say, I'd rather not hire someone. I'm only going to hire people who I think are okay in my book, right? So it depends who you are, right? If
That's what happening at schools. Bingo.
I want to hire who I think is like me, right? Whoever that person is. But it also hurts business, because good business is diverse mindsets. Now you don't even get that either. So it hurts the business and hurts the people. I'm sorry. I went long. It's your fault, Michael. I went long.
No, it's all right, because you're pointing out something that's very clear, because there's interactions. We learn from interactions, except now we're not having interactions anymore. When I was in 86, 87, I was in college, and I was speaking with a woman who was on my same floor, and she's gay, never had been around men before, had no idea about men. One of the funniest things I ever heard in my life is we were talking about, I don't know what. And she goes, let me ask you a question. So is a male genital always hard? Funniest thing I ever heard in my life.
It depends on who you're talking to. Yeah.
But she had no interaction. She had no knowledge. And the beautiful thing about that moment, even though I was laughing at that moment, and she was a little confused, but she understood I wasn't laughing at her. I was laughing at, one, slightly uncomfortable. It wasn't a question I ever expected to hear. And two, because I had never realized someone would go through life and not have that knowledge, that experience to know that's not the case, in case anyone is watching the video.
When I went to
that's
boot
not
camp,
the case.
When I went to boot camp and I met white people from the deep country. Me being a city boy, I had never met white people from deep country before. I didn't know, right? I didn't understand that there were people who didn't wear shoes. Like that was a thing. I didn't know that it was a thing, that you would just, that you would ride a motorcycle in flip-flops. Like that wasn't a thing that I understood happens, and it happens all around the country. But I was from the city. I was 17. I didn't know anything. All I knew was, well, you live in the city, right? So that's what you do. right? I didn't understand it. So really, that really opened my mind to understanding people are just different. And I completely agree.
But that's the thing. We need these interactions because
we don't do it in college anymore, though. College now has become the opposite.
No, now we have safe spaces, and we have prohibited words. Words are thoughts. Thoughts are knowledge. We don't have that anymore. And we're taking that away. And that's one of the problems with safe spaces. That's one of the problems because woke isn't just, I know we focus a lot on, again, gender and sexuality. It's obvious. But think about, you have to apologize for the color of skin you were born. You
said something like, Travis was joking when he said it. He said, as a white male. But if you go to places now, you will hear people constantly say as a before they speak. And when they say as a, what they're saying is, you may not criticize me. So they will literally say, as, like every time I talk, as a black male, and then I talk. So now you can't say anything, otherwise you're racist.
That's it.
Right? Or I say, as a gay woman, well, now you're homophobic if you say anything, so you can't. So I always got to say that thing. And when I hear that, and it's happened to me on a radio interview once, when I hear people start that way, as a black woman, so-and-so, and I'm like, don't play the race card with me. Nope, doesn't matter. Your ideas are good or they're bad. I don't care if you're a black woman. I don't care if you're a white woman. I don't care if you're a man. Your ideas are good or bad. You don't get to play the race card with me. And boy, did I get pushback. But the host afterwards was like, thank you, Larry. Because the host didn't want to say it. And why? Because the host was white. And the host was afraid. I know, but my point, to Travis's point, which Travis said, he's like, as a white male, he was joking, but he wasn't joking, right? Like he was joking, but he wasn't joking. Yes. So the white guy can't say the thing, but I can.
It's like start with psychology.
Smarter than him.
I've had this argument, and for people who don't know, I do political commentary. I've been doing it like 17 years. I literally had politicians, elected politicians, that I was interviewing, saying, and he started the conversation with, and I want to apologize for, I'm white and obviously white privilege. I'm like, where did that come from? I've never said that in my life. It has nothing to do with anything we're going to talk about. And on top of that, I'm going to tell you, you should never apologize for your skin. We had an entire discussion because this politician who never backed away from it said, no, but I have to apologize. I'm like, to who? Why?
Yes.
And how is that helping anyone?
For it.
And JD, I don't think anyone on this panel wants to have to go through life apologizing because you were born whatever you are. And you should never do that. That's part of the evil of what is woke, in my mind.
Well, I'll just add that I'm constantly apologizing to my parents for being born. I mean, good grief, they've endured. But again, Michael's making some great points. It reminds me of a point that you made earlier, Michael, just in terms of how humor can help us humor kind of is the anti-woke, I don't want to say weapon, but it's the best weapon we have right now is humor. And you pointed out one of the first shows, All in the Family, right? That really kind of started approaching these issues. Well, that was a comedy show, and nowadays we have South Park, and they can seem to do whatever the hell they want on that show because they do it with humor. And you made such a great point, Michael, about how we're losing our interactions. And I think something that always helped me, whether it was a young kid growing up in a Jewish suburb until, an awkward kid going to college or an awkward libertarian trying to talk to whoever will listen to me, humor helps break down those barriers so much. I mean, again, Larry talking about learning about all these hillbillies riding their motorcycles around without their shoes on. I mean, that sounds fun. I think
I agree.
There's things that we can learn from each other. I
wasn't mad at him. I was just surprised. I wasn't mad at him.
Exactly. Right. And when people learned that I grew up around Jews, they were like, "Oh, do you know what Yom Kippur is?" And I'm like, "It's Yom Kippur. You got to say it with a fun accent." But we all have so much to learn from each other. So when you're taking away the interactions or you're forcing the interactions, that's a shame because I think you're losing the most human part of ourselves, and that is getting to know each other.
Well, the other part that bothers me about this, you make another valid point, which is South Park. I love South Park, right? And the creators, by the way, in case you don't know, are libertarians. So take that, conservatives and progressives, they're libertarians. So yes. But the issue is, once you have the heavy, I guess, cancel culture, which is around woke, right? You can't say. You create a world where only the powerless or the less powerful are crushed. So to your point, Julia, you're asking, why are these doctors not coming forward? Because they weren't Jordan Peterson.
And
not
now
that I'm a
the
huge
people
Jordan
who
Peterson
cause
fan.
the problem want to be the only ones to offer the solution.
Mm-hmm.
So you got the medical field that caused the problem, and now they want to give us the solution. I say no. Nope.
Here we go.
You messed
Here
up.
we go.
You're done. You
Well,
got one shot.
But my issue here, though, is you have someone like, say, someone like a Dave Chappelle or someone like South Park, right? These people are so powerful with their money and influence, they're uncancelable. So they can say, I'll do what I want. What are you going to do? If I get screwed here, I'll get 10 million here. I'll get 20 million here. I'll get 30 million here. Whatever. I'm fine. I'm going to make my cash. But what happens when you're an up and coming comedian? You're afraid. What happens if you're Jordan Peterson's popular, wrote books. He can say whatever he wants to say. What happens if you're a regular psychologist in some practice in Ohio? You don't want to say anything. You get canceled. You're finished. So this environment makes it so that the little guy gets scared. Worst part, self-censors, right? So you don't even need the censors anymore because I'm so afraid I self-censor. But then if I'm powerful, I'm the opposite. Everybody go to hell. I'm Joe Rogan, go to hell. I'm Dave Chappelle, go to hell. But if I'm a small guy, I self-censor.
I wouldn't have self-censored. I started off as a psychology major, and that's why I had the knowledge to write up about cognitive brain development in the first place. I switched majors ultimately, which is good because I would have been in a position. But even if I was in that position, I still would have stepped up and done the right thing. So to see so many people in the medical field hiding underneath avatars for so long, because it was a long time. There was only about, as I said, a handful, maybe two at best, of women who were not hiding under avatars at the time. I understand that why they might have felt they had to do that, or they had to hide, or they couldn't say anything. But then at the same time, to have those same people claiming they're going to offer solutions, it's not just the people hiding under avatars, just the medical field claiming they're going to offer solutions. Where were the solutions before? Why didn't you come out with this before? Why wait till it's okay to say something?
Yeah.
Say something when it's not okay to say something.
So I know I was saying that they're all libertarians. So let me talk to my audience for a second. If you want to know if you're a libertarian or progressive or conservative, you can take the world's smallest political quiz. My sponsors, the Advocates. Yes, theadvocates.org. They are my sponsor. If you want to support this show, you can head over to theadvocates.org and take one of their quizzes. There are many of them there. Take any of them you like. They take anywhere from 4 to 7 minutes, short period of time. They're free. They're free. They will ask you for an email. And if you like an organization like the Advocate for Self-Government, they're about self-government. You'll get an email once a month if you like that. If not, don't give your email. It doesn't matter. You pick. But either way, you can share it. If you take one of the surveys and share it online, they're happy. I'm happy. You're supporting my sponsor, and it's free. So you don't have to pay one dime. Just head on over there and do that if you can. Take a test or take the world's smallest political quiz. That's like 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Take it. Share it. Let people know. Do you come up conservative, progressive? Do you come up moderate? Do you come up libertarian or authoritarian? And a little side note for the audience here. Authoritarian, which is always the smallest one, is growing. Mm-hmm. That is a something to think about in America. We've been giving out the world's smallest political quiz now for decades.
Right.
And the largest chunk, there's no majority, but the largest chunk has always been moderate. And it actually still is. The largest chunk it gets, a little over 35%, I think, is moderate. Most people as a chunk are moderate. The least one is authoritarian. But that number's been going up. And if you've been watching my Twitter feed as people do it, more authoritarians are popping up on Twitter.
Oh boy.
What does that tell you? So just something to think about. So guys, head over to theadvocates.org. Take that, please. It does matter. And if you happen to be watching this on Twitter, please retweet this right now. If you'll watch this on Twitter right now, please retweet this right now. Just hit retweet so that people know what we're doing and they can watch this. It helps, again, to get past all the algorithms. And lastly, what I'll ask is support the people who showed up tonight. Please support them. Follow them on Twitter and see what they're doing. Their Twitter profiles show other stuff they're doing. So please go there to check it out. You can follow Travis at Travis Irvine USA. You can follow Mike at MV Consult. You can follow Julia at Julia D. Robertson. So, guys, I'm glad we're doing this as always. I know, Michael, you want to say something? Please go ahead.
Well, it was a couple of things, but it's the sad thing I'm hearing.
Let me move on to something else then. If you're, let me go. I got you. Go to something else. I want to go to commercialism. What I mean by that is there's a saying now that we've had about a year or two, which I don't know if it's true or not, but it's the idea of go woke, go broke. Is that true? And I feel like some parts are showing that's true. And the example I'll give is Netflix, right? Many people I know who like Netflix or did like Netflix, they watch Netflix and they start going, wow, everything's garbage. They don't like it. They think it's garbage. Eminem, right? Trying to change their characters, and now they bring on someone else. They trash all the characters because it's failing miserably. CNN, trying to be like MSNBC. There's already an MSNBC. It's called MSNBC, right? CNN trying and having the worst ratings they've ever had. I don't know if you had noticed. They had less than 500,000 primetime viewers. That's horrible for them. That's the lowest they've had in like a decade. They're getting hammered. MSNBC has been beating them for a long time. Still is. MSNBC is over 1 million and Fox is almost 2 million. So they are getting crushed. And they're considering now bringing Bill Maher on. And Bill Maher, they're seeing as well. He's kind of like an anti-woke liberal. They kind of want to bring him on. So is this go woke, grow broke thing real? Or is it just something that people conservatives say because they're mad?
It's real. It's real because we see it. We see the failures. I mean, literally, I took 5 minutes before the show to just off the top of my head, run down just a couple of things, just as forewarning. I don't watch TV. I don't watch the news. I don't watch the programs. I will not subscribe to any program because it's a waste of money to me. I watch anime, I play video games, and I read the news. But yet, someone who's that far out of, and this is true for about 15 years now, we've got Captain Marvel, Mrs. Marvel, Obi-Wan, Witcher Origins, Black Widow, Velma, Last of Us 2, Black Panther 1 and 2, Winter Soldier and Falcon, She-Hulk, Predator, the latest one with the Indians and the girl, the 357, Ocean's 8, Hogwarts, Harry Potter, the last couple of versions, and the whatever beast thing, Rings of Power, HR 61, and Senator Al Franken. That's everything I could come up with. And every single one of those, most of them are entertainment, but every single thing in that list is woke. And almost every single thing in that list, people hate. And yet it's still there. And when we look at the economy, every one of those companies responsible, every industry that is connected to all of those things are completely failing. People are rejecting it. Why? Because you're telling people, think like this. Obey what we have told you. Do not question it. Don't go outside your field, your cell.
I have a secondary piece here, right? And this is the part. I have a secondary piece. I don't mind at all when they create new characters. What makes me angry is when they change the old characters because they don't like them anymore. That's insulting to me, right? Like if you make a new Star Trek and it's a new Star Trek, right? I know the old Star Trek from the 60s and 70s, right? So if you make a new Star Trek and you change the race of people, I don't mind, right? For those who don't know the Star Trek saga, right? As Star Trek went into the next generations, in the third iteration, there was a black captain, Captain Ben Sisko. I loved him. DS9. He was a new character. They didn't change Captain Kirk and make him Jerome Kirk a black guy. They didn't do that. Captain Kirk is still white, as he should be. He's always been white. And Captain Sisko is black, as he should be. And Captain Janeway is a woman, as she should be, because they're new people with new stories. But when they go back and change, maybe I'm the wrong guy, but it bothers me. I'm like, I feel like you're telling me that I was wrong for liking my old stuff.
Yes.
And man, that pisses me off. Just give me new stuff.
They're saying that because, again, not only are they telling you are wrong and you had wrong think, they're now telling the young kids, this is the only way to do this. And the whole point of why they're doing that is because when Star Trek Discovery does exist, no one watches it. No one cares. It's horrible. It's horrible writing, horrible characters. It is just propaganda. It's pushing this message.
Discovery,
and they hate it.
Discovery,
and that's why they have to go
woke. But let me tell you, DS9 wasn't woke. They just made a cool black character.
Well, that's just because they had good writing. The difference is good writing doesn't mean.
Remember his friend. Woke. His friend was basically trans. Yeah. Remember, it was a male. It was a male like symbiont in like a female body or something. And nobody cared. It was a cool character. We didn't care.
Curzon. The character was Curzon.
Cared. I'm sorry. We're geeking out, you guys. I apologize. We're geeking out, you guys. I apologize.
Well, no,
I'm sorry. It just got me all going.
That's what's always fun for me to hear any woke debates or conversations happen about sci-fi and things like that. It's like, what you're telling me it's unbelievable to have a black captain? They're in space right now. There are more unbelievable things happening in your precious show, sir. I mean, again, it can go both ways too. I remember the uproar when the first time we had a black stormtrooper in the Star Wars reboots. I mean, there are some people on the internet losing their minds about that. I agree with you, Larry. It should just be about the story. It should be about the fun. It should be about disconnecting. It is entertainment. And as long as, to Michael's point, as long as the show doesn't completely suck, you still need to have those core principles of good entertainment and good television, kind of like All in the Family had. That's really what helps these types of things appeal to a broader base of people in the first place.
I agree. And I didn't mind it was a black stormtrooper. I didn't care because it was a new character.
Right. It's also sci-fi.
Oh,
it's
now Han Solo's black. They didn't do that. They went, we have a new character and he's black. Okay.
That's right. Of course, there was a time when Han Solo was Frozen, and that he no longer identifies as Frozen, which I appreciate.
That's true, and he was brown then too, so maybe he was Frozen. Transracial. Maybe it's possible. I don't know.
Can I ask JD something?
Yeah.
How do you feel when you see a character that you grew up and you loved? It doesn't. I don't know, Princess Leia, whomever. I don't know. I'm older, and again, I'm disconnected from all this. But there's a character that you read in a book, Galadriel. Right. Rings of Power, Galadriel. I'm a Lord of the Rings fan, always have been, long before the movies came out. And you love the character. She's fantastic. She's wonderful. She's powerful. She's beloved because she earned it. And then they turn her into this new thing. They take, especially if it's a character that might be gay, that is hinted at it. If we're talking about older books and such, it's someone who's hinted at, but
usually hinted in older books. Yeah.
Yeah. In the older books, maybe it's hinted at. In more recent media, it was there. And now they decide to completely wipe that out and change it in every aspect. Does that make you feel more in love with that character? Or does that make you say, I'm pissed off. Why'd you do that? And they go, it's woke, so you can't complain. How do you feel?
Yes.
I usually like things. A lot of stuff comes from books, as you were saying. I like things to be true to the author. So if the author's intention was there for something to be a certain way, I think it's really important to respect the way something was originally intended or written and have respect for the artist or creator of that character. But if it's from after 2015, I'm usually Googling before I watch it. And that's if I've decided to watch it. If it's after 2015, I'm not going to click to watch it. I actually wish there was a option to remove anything from after 2015 because I don't like the way that wokeism has moved its way into TV and movies. I don't like the way that the lesbian community was completely skipped over, and how that's impacting young people, how it's impacting kids and their view of themselves. When there's absolutely zero representation of actual lesbians or actual lesbians as they actually exist out in the world. And you only see the femme characters, or you see the the bisexual lesbian. That's a popular one. The bisexual lesbian is a big thing. And you skip right over and you make these characters into trans. Now, how a kid's gonna translate that, and where are they gonna find themselves? And if they can't find themselves in a character on TV, and the only thing they can see that even remotely represents themselves is trans, then they're gonna be, oh, well, I must be that. There was never any opportunity for lesbians to show up on TV. So I have a lot of thoughts around media and television, censorship and agendas being pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed agendas. Whoa, agendas. Yeah. So that's all 2015 and beyond is agendas being pushed.
Let me grab a couple comments.
Agendas pushed on me.
We have a lot of comments. Let me grab a couple of them. Patty says, I hate the term woke. I'd rather be knowledgeable and informed.
Oh, before you go further, Patricia wants to be referred to as goddess mother, I think she said, which I love. I like that. I loved your pronoun too, Patricia. I saw that. I wanted to bring it up.
There we go. Yes. So no, but I do think that originally was what the term was supposed to be, right? I think even the term woke has been destroyed, right? It was supposed to be, I'm woke because I now see things that others don't see, right? I get it now. And again, I learned this when I ran for governor in 2018, believe it or not. When I ran for governor in 2018, I crossed the country and crossed the state. And I realized how much the rest of the world is not New York City. And how so much that I thought took for granted just wasn't there, right? Like I had, this is an interesting point. And I'm going to give myself a libertarian pat in the back here. In 2018, the media came and checked all of the people running all their teams to see, I'm not joking, to see who had the most diverse team. The media checked this. I don't know why that mattered, but it did, right? I never cared. And again, this is in writing, done. I had the most diverse team. They said so, not me. The media said so, not me. And there was a Democrat running, a Green Party person running, excuse me, and a Republican running, and me. And I had the most diverse team. Because I wasn't caring. I just did it because I thought I have to, right? I just found the best people I could possibly find. And that's what happened. So I think the concept of that I already had in my head.
On your team.
Maybe next time.
Next time when you run for president, which you better do, I'm on your team.
Don't try to destroy me. I thought you liked me, Julia.
I do. I just said that. I want you to run for president.
Oh my God, that's punishment.
There's no. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, I got you.
Punishment. Oh my God, I got beat up enough. Travis knows how hard it is to run just for a statewide office. It's brutal. Running for president is just punishment. Yes. Absolute punishment.
That's true.
So, especially run as a libertarian. You get it from all sides, Democrat, Republican, and then especially other libertarians. So.
100%. Yes. Joe says, woke is the past tense of the word awake. So yes, I think that's correct. Yes. The Scientific Libertarian says, if you're too woke, I suspect some sort of amphetamine or coke product, but I work night shifts, so I'm never fully awake. I like the idea. Look, you like doing coke. I'm okay with that. You do you. No worries. So yes.
It reminds me of a former Libertarian presidential candidate, John McAfee. That guy was always very awake. He was on something really great, and rest in peace, rest in power to him.
He was one of my most popular interviews I ever did. I had him for 2 hours straight. He literally took a piss in the middle of my show. I loved it. So yes. John says in 1970, the Kinks sang a song named Lola about a transvestite. In 1987, Aerosmith sang a song called Dude Looks Like a Lady, which says people were seeing this way before the woke generation. Yeah, I do think some of that's true. I feel, to your point, Michael, I feel like we have gone backwards in a way. Like I felt, it wasn't perfect, don't get me wrong, but I felt as a young man growing up that we were moving in the right direction. I did feel that, right? 80s and 90s, the most popular TV shows, Cosby, before he was a rapist, but Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Family Matters, Moesha. I mean, these were Black casts with Black people and Black heroes, women and men. And Cosby, his wife's a doctor or a lawyer, something like that, right? I mean, it was just so much, right? I remember that. A Will and Grace, I mean, made gay people cool, right? I mean, just that's what I remember. I felt like we're going in the right direction. I felt like it was happening. And all of a sudden, I felt like we just went over a cliff.
The blowback is coming.
There we go.
The gay and lesbian community is like, ooh, the blowback is coming. It's coming. Ooh.
What does blowback look like?
I hope it is coming because, and I hope
it's going to come down on the wrong people, though.
No,
that's my worry. Yes, Julia, that's my worry. Yes,
I don't think so. I think that I would like to believe that people are going to walk back to, well, you're a human being and you're not affecting my life, and I'm perfectly fine with that. You know, whether, right. Like it's the same thing with, well, I'm a Republican, you're a Democrat. I don't care until your policies, until something is affecting me negatively. I don't care. Call yourself whatever you want to be.
There's an anger,
anything.
Mike. but there's an anger, right? I mean, I can see it in Julia. I see it in myself, right? I see it in Julia feels erased.
There's
and I
gotta tell you, coming.
Me too, right? When
Governor knows Michael, what I'm talking about.
Michael, you will get this, right? When I hear young, and this is just me.
Yeah.
When I hear young Black men and women like 17, 18, 19, and they hear like someone says Black instead of African American, or they hear the word Negro from an old TV show or old something like that, and they're like, my God, it's so racist, and my God, it's racism and racism. And I said to myself, you don't know what racism is. Like, you have not felt that. What you feel is bullshit.
Yeah.
It's not racism, right? It's just not. I mean, and that bothers, as a person, the other people not get that. Michael, I think you'll understand what I'm talking about, right?
It's absolutely true. Absolutely true.
Drives me crazy. Drives me nuts.
I think there's and JD, Julia, you can completely confirm this or tell me I'm wrong, but I think that's true also in the LGBTQ community.
There is no LGBTQ community.
Exactly. Ooh. That's my point. There
Larry likes that.
And then there's the politics. I see that. And it's like, oh, you have to agree with this political idea that someone else told you that because they just ranked you as a category. And you have to agree and you can't question it. Otherwise, you're evil. It's like, no, you're just a human being. And you got a life.
But T isn't L, right? They're two separate things. T
I don't care.
Isn't L, right?
So
no.
It's kind of like you
putting
me in with
you don't have to
people.
care until they shove you in the same thing. It's this is the problem I have, right? When you shove all minorities in the same thing.
Right.
Black people aren't Asians. Asians aren't Black people. There are different issues we dealt with. Jews aren't Black. Black people aren't Jews. There's a different lived experience to both of them. They aren't the same, right? But what we're doing is saying, if you're a white Christian male, you're bad. Everything else is all together, and we've all had the same experience. No, we haven't. We've had different experiences, right? That we have to accept are different. And that's what I'm saying.
Started tacking on letters to LGBTQ plus A, Z, Y, you know, like how many letters are we going to add? And now it includes straight people. I don't have a lot. I actually have more in common with straight people because that's a sexuality that has to do with sex and who you're having sex with. All right. So when you start adding on letters, there is no community anymore because the community has become so inclusive of every single possible person under the rainbow who's not in there anymore.
Agreed.
And what do I have in common? And also the L has a big issue and has for years now. The L, there's even something called drop the L, because we don't want to be attached to a lot of what's going on. And we were the first to speak up against a lot of what's been going on. And we're getting dragged right down with whatever craziness has overtaken and infiltrated the organizations that we once set up to protect ourselves. They have been heavily infiltrated by extremists, and it is no longer in any way a representation of lesbians. Actually, most of these places don't even have lesbians in the mix. We don't get an opinion. We're not running any of them.
So, I've noticed that. And that's a recent change. That's last 5-10 years.
They're holding the L hostage. They're holding our letter hostage. And they're not just holding us hostage. They put us at the beginning. It's the LGB, blah, 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 blah. Like we're the mothers of all this. Like we birthed all of it. No, baby. No, thank you. We don't want anything to do with it. Like that's where we're at because it's gone way too far. And these are who's teaching the children right now. You know, in 2012, I met a young lesbian. She was a kid. My wife and I met her at a garage sale. We met her mother. And by 2015, she was identifying as a trans man. And then she was dating another trans man. And then she identified as a gay man. So this is 2015. So I keep saying 2015, right, as a timeline. And now who's teaching in the classroom? She would be a teacher in the classroom at this point. So these are the teachers. So when you're going on to different sites and you're seeing these teachers like preaching and grooming, sorry, that's the word for it, and indoctrinating children, these are who have grown up and are teaching. So you've got a young lesbian who now identifies as a gay man, and she's teaching, and you know, dating other trans men, and she's teaching children, and this is an indoctrination cycle. And that's who they're hiring to teach. There is no LGBTQ plus XYZ community. It is the biggest. It's a joke. It's a sinking ship, and there's backlash coming, and it's going to come down on the L because we look like we're leading up the whole thing because they're holding our letter hostage, even though we don't have a say in anything.
And they insult you, and they call you a TERF. They insult you.
It is a hostage
people
situation.
Got mad at me. By the way, people got mad at me for having you on, and I was like, I don't care. I'm still having her on anyway. I didn't care. People got mad at me. I didn't care. Yes. I didn't
Why?
Care. Travis, go ahead.
Are controversial. We're not supposed to speak.
Yes.
We're not even allowed to speak. I told Larry about this last time, a lesbian publication and when I asked them how many lesbians they had on staff, they told me one. Lesbian writers.
It's a lesbian publication.
Right. And they were saying why lesbians need to use condoms. Yes, condoms for penis and vagina sex. Now, this is going out to young lesbians. So young lesbians are reading this going, oh, we need to carry condoms for penis and vagina sex. The person writing it, not a lesbian, online saying, I'm not a lesbian. So why are you claiming to be the expert on lesbian sex?
Wow.
Which was a claim that was being made. When I called to find out how many lesbians were working at this lesbian publication, the answer was one.
Wow.
One.
Okay, that's okay. Me and Michael, we're gonna start the Irish American newspaper. Me and Mike.
So that's why people hate lesbians.
We're gonna start it right now.
Because lesbians will break it down. We'll like chip it down.
Wow. All right, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Travis. You've been chomping at the bit. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I just want to say I've never been more proud to have my L label right now, but of course that L is for libertarian.
Yes.
Because I feel we're kind of parked in a nice centrist, but also moderate, but also just sensible corner in this whole debate. I know, Larry, you did want to get to book bannings and I think we're even having book burnings again. But it reminds me of the fact, because you made a great point about the old terms. I remember when Huckleberry Finn, which is a book I learned in my Jewish public school, we read it out loud. We read it privately. That was a book that the left, for a long time, they were trying to cancel it because of the words, because of the terms that are used in there.
Absolutely.
And then you, on the flip side, have now all these conservatives wanting to ban as many books as they can, whether it's LGBTQ or just sex or any other topic they don't seem to like. It's interesting. Well, but Michael, I'm just saying I see it coming from both sides. You know, the cancel culture.
Books.
They're trying to cancel each other. And so that's why I'm going to kind of sit here in the middle and let everyone fight it out. You know,
I don't want books being banned, period.
Exactly.
I don't care if there's N-words in them. I don't care if there's gay people in them. I don't want them banned. Right, I don't want them banned. I want teachers and not administrators. And the problem here isn't teachers. The problem is administrators. They're the ones hiring the right people. They're the ones setting the agenda, right? That's the problem. You get rid of administrators, you'll change a whole lot. That's number one. The biggest thing in New York State, 2 separate unions, an administrators union and a teachers union. 2 separate. You do that, changes everything. That's number one. But number 2 is I want parents deciding what their kids are learning. If the parents don't want the N-word in the book, I'm not against that. Let parents decide what they want. I'm okay with that. But we're deciding ban all the books. Once you start, you guys know the original movie Fahrenheit 451?
Yeah.
The book? Not the new movie that was a piece of garbage. But it was terrible. Again, it was they wokeified it and ruined it. But the first book, and the first movie was actually good. It was about people who go around burning books, right? Because all the books got to be burned. Right? And that's where we're going. So yeah, Michael didn't like that, but you conservatives burn books too.
Wait a minute. Yes, but let me clarify a point there. And as the Republican here, I may be the only Republican. I don't know. JD may or may not, but here's my point.
You're the only open
party.
No problem.
Partyless.
That's cool. Independent. That's what most of Americans are, and we need to hear from.
I was a Democrat. I was, and then I was like, oh, no. I saw the problems with Biden before they even started. I tried to ring the alarm, and day one erased sex as a protected class in law. Day one, I called it.
Yeah,
there we go.
You're part of a growing movement. A lot of people are in the same boat that you are. But in terms of book burning, let me clarify one thing, because Larry, you know this about me. For 17 years, I have been all about publicly talking about free speech. I want people to say everything. I don't believe in hate terms. I don't believe in hate laws. I don't believe in any of that kind of restriction. You don't like it, protest it, don't buy it, whatever it is. Right. But that doesn't mean it can't be there. But here's my problem. It also has to be age appropriate. I don't want
True.
a 5-year-old. And in many cases, and what we're talking about, and especially when they talk about Florida, we're talking about 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds being introduced to full-on adult sex with pictures. We're talking about children who are 9, 10, 12, who are being introduced to concepts.
But hold on, wait, Michael, I'm going to touch this perfectly. That's how it started. And then most recently, they want to ban an AP African-American course. See, it started where you were talking about, but as I said, it keeps going. Now they're banning A. It's an hold on, but it's more about that. But it's an elective. It's an elective AP course. So if you don't want to learn as a high schooler about this special African-American history thing, you don't have to. It's voluntary. If you don't want your kid to do it, you don't have to. Now they're banning that. The first stuff you said, I agree with. But my point is, it always keeps going. And then it gets to that.
I'm against that. If you have people who are cognitive about it, they have the ability to understand and comprehend. Fantastic. Show them, let them have the choice, not the
100%
obligation, not the mandate, but the choice for that. Fantastic. But that's not what we've seen. I'm against any mandate or any obstruction to learning and knowledge. And I think that's where most conservatives are. You're mentioning an exception. And I would say, without knowing,
my worry is it always goes there. That's why I don't want any of the banning, because it always winds up going there. Right? If you're telling me I want to ban sex
3-year-old
or 5-year-olds, I'm with you. But if you're telling me I want to ban a high school kid from deciding an optional class on African-American history that he or she can choose if they want to, why would you ban that?
No, that's something else.
Makes no sense to me.
Yeah. Right. Well, and I think Michael touched on a good point again that we pressed earlier, and that is taking your own wokeism and forcing it on others, right? Yes. I mean, in terms of what Michael's speaking about, if 5-year-olds are being forced to read these books, okay, that's not voluntary. That's not going to be good for anybody. But at the same time, if I was 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9, I'd love to see those books. Sounds great.
Me too. I'd be all about it.
You're teaching me that in school? What school? Where do I sign up? Of course, I wouldn't fully
in schools, you could choose a gender, you could choose a sex. Like you go to McDonald's and you drive up and you go, I'm gonna order the male sex today. It doesn't work that way. And teaching this idea to kids, it's going to cause issues like gay conversion therapy. It's really gonna have a ripple effect. So we're talking about two different things here: African-American history and gender ideology, which is a term that I coined the current usage of. It was called trans ideology prior, and I was underground in women's groups, feminist groups saying, hey, can we change this to gender ideology? Because trans ideology really sounds like we're pointing a finger at transsexuals. And the OG transsexuals, I don't think they're on board with all this. They certainly did not intend for us to indoctrinate children. They didn't intend for us to, like, all the stuff going on right now. Like, let's not point the finger. Let's just call it gender ideology. And it's in the schools. So can you say I should read this to a 5, 6, 7, or even a 12-year-old or a 16-year-old? It's indoctrination, and that indoctrination can lead to issues like gay conversion therapy. That's done on a very subtle, level under the progressive label. Oh, we're being progressive. Oh, so this is progressive now.
I like that. Let me grab a couple comments if I could. Jean says, I like this woman. You got a fan, Julia. You got a fan.
Thank you.
Like that. Yes. So Dave says, wait a minute.
I'm the type that tells it like it is, people.
There we go. I love it. Dave says, wait a minute. A lesbian has to date a man who identifies as a woman. And if they don't, they're transphobic. That's a thing.
Correct. That is a thing, current thing.
Yes. And I have heard that more than once. That's a thing. I've seen it. And, my daughters, again, are young, so they're in this world. And one of the things that I've seen them worry about or deal with is the idea if you're not something special, you're boring or not important. So that's one of the reasons why they came up with that term queer.
Homeschool.
The term, I did homeschool my kid, actually. I did. So yes. My youngest, yes. So, but the point when I heard the term queer is a term that just says, I don't know what I am. But a lot of straight people are accepting the term as queer so that they're not straight. Even though they're just straight. Like, I'm just a straight guy who dates women, but I call myself queer so that people don't think that I'm just some regular straight guy.
Can you imagine appropriating a slur like that? A slur can be reclaimed by the people it was used against to oppress. That is the rule. We all know this is the rule.
Yes.
How is it that now we have
I get to use the N-word,
calling
you
Andrew
don't?
Sullivan queer?
That's correct. Yes.
On TV.
No,
I've stopped using it, Larry. I've stopped using it.
Thank you, Travis. I know you've been doing that the whole time, so I'm letting you know you don't get to use it, only I do.
Now, if I want to call myself a dyke, that's fine. There's rules, right? Sure. There's rules. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows there's rules. When did we forget about these rules? Now, you know, Bill Maher, bless his heart, he's doing a lot of good stuff. He called Andrew Sullivan a gay man queer on national TV, and nobody said anything. He's like, "You're a queer." No, babe, that's a slur. Like, you don't say that. Don't check with people first. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe he checked with Andrew.
But no,
I
thought.
I could be wrong here. Maybe he checked with Andrew first.
Julia, hold on. Let me be clear on this. And I need to know this because I thought, and maybe I'm wrong here, I thought queer was a term that you could use for someone who doesn't want to identify as one of the LGBT. That's why it's LGBTQ.
Right, straight people.
You could use that term for someone who either isn't sure or doesn't know. Like gender curious, I guess.
It's been appropriated by straight people. Even straight people are claiming to be queer. Can you imagine taking a slur, all right, which is powerful to reclaim it? Great, bravo, right? I'll call myself a homo. That's mine. I could do that. That's the rule. We all know the rule. But can you imagine people just taking a slur and being like, "Oh, I'm going to just have that for me," and they're straight? That's what's going. That it is 2023. And that's what's been going on for several years now.
Let me grab a couple more of these comments if I could.
Before you go for that.
No, go ahead, Michael, go.
I just want to say to Adam Cahoon, yes, I know the reference. Van Helsing, Alucard, you're dead on. I love it. It's esoteric to everyone who doesn't follow anime, so you guys won't know. I do. I caught the quote. I know exactly what he's saying. It's funny.
Okay, I love that. That's good. So let me see if I can grab a couple more comments. Maybe see if I can find that comment if I can. So Patty says, Michael Vasquez, love your pronoun. Mine is mother goddess and accepted by my family and friends in all communities. There we go. I like that. Very good. Very
love
good.
yours too, Patty.
Dave says, Julie, Larry is right. People who know better are afraid of being canceled. But I do think that's changing. I think because the problem is, I think people are realizing that the way you don't get canceled is by being a jerk. And I think you're finding more jerks, which is not a good thing. People shouldn't be jerks, but I think they're doing it. For example, so I remember, and I'll use race in this one. I remember when being called a racist was the worst thing you could ever be called. Mm-hmm. Like nobody wanted to be called a racist. Like that, call me a pedophile before you call me racist. It was that bad. You never want to be called a racist. Now, racist is like, okay, that's the third time this week. Like now nobody seems to care. Like people get called racist left and right now. So I feel like we've gone to a point where people just go to hell with you. I find I'm a racist. While that's a bad thing to feel, makes people more jerks, but I think it does make them less cancelable. If that makes any sense. It's defense against being canceled when you embrace the negativity. If that makes any sense. Am I wrong on this?
Well, you're negating the meaning of the word. You're taking all of the power and meaning out of it in the worst way possible. Because that's ownership. It's just, I'm so fed up. I'm so resistant to hear your words or the meaning you're putting to this, that it's now become it's non-word. It has no meaning to it. And that's the worst thing you can have. The answer to cancel culture isn't just ignore. Well, it isn't that you're reacting against it like being a jerk. It's that you don't let it phase you. You just keep going. You just keep moving forward.
But the other point you brought up, Mike, which drives me crazy, is there are racists in the world. There are real racists in the world. But if you call everybody a racist, then you've just hidden the actual racist. You know, when it comes to gender, when it comes to sexuality, in Oklahoma, they still burn gay people, literally burn them. There are people who are really homophobic and want to kill gay people. But when you call some guy who goes, hey, I'm not sure, do you like guys or girls? Oh, that's homophobic. That's not homophobia. That's some guy saying some inappropriate stuff, which is maybe he shouldn't say, but that's not homophobic. Burning people. That's what I'm worried about. There's real racists who hunt down people and kill them.
But I think we have to say, you can be racist and be Black, Asian, Hispanic, white,
100%.
or whatever race is out there. You can be sexist if you're male, female, you identify as a toaster or anything else. You can be any negative. Human beings can be anything.
100%. Agreed.
And that's positive or negative because that's who you are, because we're individuals, not categories. And you are going to be whatever you are. And the only way to help someone be more positive isn't to pile a bunch of negatives on them. It's maybe by example, maybe by conversation and interaction.
Conversation.
You know,
yes.
I met a guy going off to war. He was a kid. I talked to him. And then he said, he said he was homophobic or whatever. He made it pretty clear. And I said, would it surprise you to find out that I'm a lesbian? I changed his whole world view. I gave him my phone number. We became friends. He hung out with me and my wife. Long story short, he writes me from overseas and says, you changed my whole life. Because of you, I'm a better person. And I just want to say thank you. And that is what Michael's getting at when he's talking about interaction. Did I shut him down and go, you're a homophobe, and cry and then tweet about it? No. I gave him my phone number. I hung out with him. We went to WeHo together. He was not a bad guy. He was just raised with certain thoughts and hadn't met anybody. He even told me, I hadn't met anybody gay. You're pretty cool, actually.
You know what? You know what I think?
I like it.
Maybe everyone else, we've all had different interactions. In whether it's race or gender, sexuality, I think there's all kinds of biases out there. But I think everyone has, I'd like to believe, everyone who's ever confronted someone who has a bias against you for whatever reason, whatever it may be, your religion, your race, where you came from, your ancestry, whatever it is, that those people tend to have never experienced what you are or anything about you. They have this floating stereotype that maybe they saw on Twitter or TikTok, and they have no concept of what that is. 9 out of 10 times, unless like in the case of say like color or skin, they'll never know that you are even that thing that they think is evil. And then once they get confronted with it, once they get in front of you with it, and I had this happen to me in the Marines with a guy who's never seen Black people before until he got into the
same thing. Yep.
And we had a huge confrontation, but guess what? Fox turned out to be one of my better friends while I was in the Corps, because we sat down, had a conversation of sorts, a little physical, but a conversation.
Yes.
And
we used to have smokers back then. You could go, people don't know this. You had smokers back in the Marine Corps. When we were in the Marine Corps, you could actually go to the gym and go into a boxing ring and legally fight each other.
Yeah.
That's a thing we should do. They don't do it anymore. They stopped that. But when we were in the 80s, you could do that. That was still a thing. And the Marine Corps, some of these guys might not know, Michael, is the most conservative of all the branches. Most conservative. Most white, most conservative. And I had two people in my platoon more than once who were Klan members. One was literally a card carrying, like had the card in his wallet. He was a card carrying member of the Klan. So yes, and we dealt with them. And to Michael's point, I was their platoon sergeant, and they were okay with it, right? They turned and changed because of interaction that Michael's saying, right? They were like, oh, and people get mad at me, particularly in today's world, when I say the first step to someone changing their mind about some bigotry is saying this: okay, you're not all bad. And people get mad at me when I say that. No, that's the first step. Because they think all gay people are sinners, or all Black people are thieves, or whatever is the thing they believe. And then they go, oh, wait a minute, Julia, she's not that. Okay, so they're not all bad. That's the first step to going, I was wrong. You don't go to I was wrong. You go to they're not all bad. Then you go to I was wrong.
That's how you change the world.
Yes, but what we're doing is it's not good enough.
Right.
The second you don't immediately go, oh, I was so wrong. I'm the sinner. Please punish me. I've been wrong forever. If you don't do that right away, then you're evil and punished. We should be happy if you make the step. We should be happy if you move in the right direction and they keep moving people that way, whatever that might be. I'm sorry, Michael, you just said good stuff, so I just keep going.
No, you're right. And that's exactly right in line with what I'm saying. And It happened to me in my experiences early in my life with gay people, with trans people. It's happened in my life when I was over in Russia talking to Russians. When I was, it's every aspect. It's like, okay, I don't know. I have an idea, but that's not necessarily real. I talk to the people. Totally wrong. Nothing like what actually is. Now, does that mean everyone's a wonderful saint that I've met in my life? I really wish. I've run into my own wonderful group of KKK as well as far left racists who tell me that I'm not black and I'm not Hispanic.
Yes, I get that all the time. I'm never black enough.
Yeah,
I get that all the time. Yes.
And my answer to them is the same as to everyone else. All these other groups say, well, that's your issue. Got nothing to do with me. That's your problem to figure out.
So let me grab some if I can. This is just for you, Travis. Paula says, Travis, I voted for you.
Oh, thank you, Paula. We've got two. That makes two of us. 2 votes.
Look at that. Paula. You got at least 2 votes.
At least 2.
To be sure.
Well, I just want to say, I appreciate all of this conversation so much. I mean, thank you all again for breaking down the barriers just on personal interactions, conversations. That stuff is so important. I'd like to say I played my role. Everyone agrees. I proved that white straight males are real lame. We're lame, and you don't want to say your party. We're going to suck up all the energy. So I've been doing my part. But in all seriousness, again, I mentioned I grew up just my small little part of diversity, growing up in a Jewish suburb. And I remember high school sporting events where the opposing team would throw bagels and pennies at us at our fan section. And I didn't even understand at that point. You know what I mean? I had someone have to explain to me like, well, why would they do that? Those are good bagels, you know?
Those are good bagels.
I'm over there. I'm going like, well, they're just throwing away all these pennies. I'm the guy grabbing them in my Jewish.
You should be leading with, as a Jewish man.
See, but I don't identify and I can't claim that. I need to have some clipping done, if you know what I mean. So anyway, but in all seriousness, but then when I did get to college and I was like, I grew up in this Jewish town and people knew it was a Jewish town, I had to basically kind of like Larry interacting with the hillbillies on the motorcycles or the actual card carrying. I didn't know they made actual cards. I know they made weird, hats. I didn't know they also have card carrying, but
you can't wear the hat because of the uniform, so you do the card instead.
Okay, great. It's easier to hide the card than the hat. But again, I had to play my small little role of explaining Jewish culture to the kids in college who I was just meeting for the first time, who had never met a Jewish person or even met someone who was adjacent to Jewish people before. And I think I'm just very grateful, especially now, to all the Jewish people I did grow up with who did bring me over for Hanukkah services, who brought me over for Shabbat dinner. And so I could just learn, it's all about community and faith. And I'm not going to judge them for that. It's a lot more than just bagels and pennies. Please tell Licking Valley High School that as soon as you can.
It's funny, when I was a kid, I grew up as a little kid in a very black neighborhood and as an older kid in a white neighborhood. And when I was a little kid, most of my friends, almost all were black. Some were Hispanic, but almost all were black. And I remember the first time I was told, you're a minority. It's like, what do you mean? Well, there's very few black people in the country. You're a minority. I'm like, that's not true. Because all I knew was black people. So why would I think that
Larry,
everyone I knew was black?
Larry, everyone may be surprised with this. Larry, I've told you about this before. There's only been one time in my entire life, and I've traveled an incredible amount. Only one time in my life I actually felt like a minority. I was sitting a quarter of a mile away from the Kremlin in the middle of the winter, and something just bugged me that day. And I'm just staring off, and I was there for 15 minutes, half an hour, looking at the Kremlin, trying to figure out what's wrong. And a buddy of mine, and this is in Moscow, they got city blocks like Manhattan does, which means like a quarter mile each. And a buddy of mine, like 2 blocks down, starts screaming, "Hey, Mike!" And he comes running on up to me. I'm like, how did you know it was me? How could you tell? I mean, I'm standing and it's Moscow. There's thousands of people moving all around us.
Right.
And I'm covered up almost up to my head. Got a shapka. I've got a dublinka. Yes, I speak Russian. And I'm like, you can barely see me. How do you know? And he goes, "You're black." Bang, instantly hit my head. Oh, that's it. Everyone here is not black. For the first time in my entire life, I had never been in a situation where I was like the black guy in a city, and it was not exactly a city, but
I know what you mean.
There's a couple of Africans, but they're not Americans.
Right.
And that's the only time I have ever felt like a minority. And that's a good thing, because I'm an American. I'm just a human being. I'm just another person.
Yep.
And yeah, I had that moment where I was like, okay, that was unusual. But I lived there for another year. I got to have friends from all across the Soviet Union, got to learn about their culture, learned the language.
I remember you saying I used to live in Japan. When I lived in Japan, I was the only American. I was the English teacher over there. I was the only American in the whole neighborhood where I lived. So one of my friends at one point who was in the military, who came down to visit me, he's driving a car and he's trying to find my house. So he drives by and the kids point to my house. The kids figured, oh, he's American. It's like one of the American. He must be going there. So the kids all knew to point to my house. They, oh, there's the Americans over there. So yes, I know the feeling of being the oddball out. I was absolutely that when I was in Japan. Yes.
I once got to be the Arab pulled off the plane. That was
fun. Really?
What?
Yeah. Well, I actually had to do Robertson as a pen name. I had trouble with having the Arab name in there, and the Arab name has gotten me into trouble a few times. Once on the plane, got pulled up, is there a bomb in your suitcase, and pulled into a room with like 10 security men surrounding me.
Wow.
That's
yours
crazy.
Is worse than mine. Yours is always worse than my story.
Yeah.
I don't like your story.
Yeah, your story is scary.
Yours is scary too. All those bagels flying at you.
It was serious business. Don't worry. I was catching as many as I could. Believe me, I was very hungry that day. After college, I actually also worked in the Bahamas. And so to your point, Larry, about, again, it's the Bahamas. I'm the white guy. I'm the minority.
As the Jewish guy.
As a person adjacent of Jewish people who also worked in the Bahamas.
Not circumcised, right?
I think that was the joke. Yes, absolutely. And then again, everyone's making great points about just living in other countries and just being part of that culture. You're not just the American, but yeah, I was the minority. I was the white guy. And in the Bahamas, a place like the Bahamas, it's just about island culture. So it doesn't even really matter who you are. Everyone knows that you're there to either have a good time or to go fishing or both. And that's really just what it came down to. I do want to apologize. I did grow white guy dreadlocks, and I want to apologize. It's the only haircut that's offensive. It's the only haircut that's offensive to all races, and I am sorry about that.
How were you identifying when you drew the dreadlocks?
I was identifying as the cool guy who wasn't getting fired yet, even though he seemed like he was high all the time.
Oh, got it. Good identity. I like that idea. That's actually pretty good. That is good. So let me grab a couple more of these if I could. Let's see here. Logic says, she says, looks like I caught a good one. The LGBT is not a monolith. We don't all think alike. Yes, yep. She's right. She's right. Absolutely. And the other part is like, why I feel like people who are not in the LGBT community are the ones making the rules on the LGBT community.
100%.
Right?
You got that.
Yes.
Right. You hit the nail on the head.
Yes. Like people tell me all the time that no, Larry, it's not black, it's African-American. And I'm like, I remember Negro. Like, I still remember Negro.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, I'm good with black, right? I remember Negro. I'm good with black. I don't worry about it, right? I'm old enough to remember that. And thinking that was a fine word, right? Yeah. My father was happy if you called him Negro and not the N-word. My father was like, we're buddies now. We're now besties. So we're good. So you're right. I have people outside of my world telling me what I should be called or what words I should use. It drives me crazy.
Because
Larry, that's what you titled our last show that we did together. LGBT.
Did I?
Yeah, you did. Mm-hmm.
There we go.
I believe so. Yeah, it was something like that.
There we go. I hope it worked. I was probably trying to be like clickbaity.
It was very successful. Yeah, it was good. Good stuff.
There we go. So it worked. Yeah, I do try to be clickbaity sometimes. So yes. All right. Ryan says, Larry, are you saying that I have no say in the Irish American newsletter? Mr. Murphy, no, you don't. It's me and Mike will decide what goes on in your newsletter. Thank you. We will take care of that for you. We will tell you what you should call yourself and how you should. Yeah, we got you covered. Don't worry about it, Mr. Murphy. We got you totally covered. Absolutely. So yes. So Craig does a smart thing. He says, ban Congress. I think he's right. That would work very well. But I do want to go one place else if I could. And this is, again, I'm doing a little bit of business here. Guys, if you're watching on Twitter, please retweet this now. It does matter. If you want to super chat and support the show, you can. Head over to Larry Sharpe YouTube. You can super chat and support the show with cash if you like. But if you don't want to support the show with cash, you don't have to. Support my sponsor instead. Head over to theadvocates.org. Take the world's smallest political quiz or take one of their surveys, either one of them. Take one of them. It's anywhere from 1 minute to 6 minutes. It's free. Share your results, and then they're happy. I'm happy. Everybody's happy. And here's the best part. When you start doing it, here's what I guarantee you. If you share your results, you will start a conversation. I see it on Twitter and Facebook all the time. When you share your results, people go, are you this? Are you that? Blah, blah, blah. You will start a conversation. If they take the test, they'll start the conversation. This starts the interaction that Michael's talking about. Head over to theadvocates.org, take one of the surveys and share it. It's important. Please do so. And if you haven't liked it or this show already, what is wrong with you? This is an awesome show. Click the like button. What's wrong with you? Click that button. That's it. Lastly, support the people who showed up tonight. Please follow them on Twitter. And there are other things you can see if you go to the Twitter page. You can follow Travis at Travis Irvine USA. You can follow Mike at MV Consult. You can follow Julia at Julia D. Robertson. So I just want to make sure I did a little bit of that work there, guys. I do kind of want to go, if I could, away from this goes to the backlash you're talking about, Julia. The go broke piece. Is the response to not be woke? Is the response to be anti-woke? What is the response here?
I'm guessing that one is that one for Travis?
Anyone? I don't know, right? What is the issue here, right? That's
I think
the issue.
woke, the term woke has been really like, it's another thing that's just been interpreted and appropriated and now it's become like a thing that's
so then
like,
let me go to the next piece if I could, right? The next piece if I could.
Like the word community.
With this idea of woke, what I can't stand about woke, and I look at this, believe it or not, from as far back as Occupy Wall Street.
Oh, yeah.
Occupy Wall Street was a wonderful idea. I think the idea was a home run idea. The concept of going there and saying, we want change, we hate the 1%, wonderful idea. Executed terribly. The concept is good. Hey, the 1%'s taking our money. We want to fight you guys. Give us our stuff. I love the idea. Wonderful idea. Executed horribly.
Yeah.
What happened was they went there. They had no real agenda, no real idea. It just became a we're pissed off and we don't want to go to work. It became that. And then the corporations got super smart. They said, okay, these guys have no idea what they're doing. They're a disaster. How about this? We'll do some woke stuff and that'll shut them all up. And we're not going to change the system at all. But now we'll like send our executives to like gender training or something. We'll do that. And that'll shut them up. And they were right. And they were correct. That shut these people up and they walked away going, we won because now they care about, I guess, pronouns or something. Whatever, we won. And they thought they won when they had a good idea and they ruined it. And what happens now is now the system is about culture war issues and not changing anything. And this goes to Davos. Remember the Davos, all the big people, the WEF, they're all over there. They're going to fix everything. They used to be talking about climate change. Now they're talking about equity now.
Good ideas keep getting ruined over and over again.
Yes.
It's a pattern.
Yes. And because people take the woke part and not the meat part. Like America didn't get better. We just got woker. I'd like to get better.
But Larry, it's not about actually making a change. It's about control. The reason why Davos has switched from climate change, which I could, and I have written tons on that. We can have that conversation, but they moved from climate change to equity because it's shutting people up and it makes them obey. Oh, you can't complain about my company anymore because we believe in equity. We're woke. Oh, well, we can't complain about that one. We won. Yay. The company didn't change. They're selling the same product in the same way to the same people with the same abuses in the system. Nothing has changed except they just said, they put out a commercial and said, we got equity. Don't you love us? Yeah, of course we love you. Give us here, take more of our money. Let's shovel it to you even faster, Apple.
Exactly.
I mean, come on.
Adam says, give Mickey Mouse rainbow trousers.
Yeah,
but you're still Disney, right? You're still Disney, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Another great example. And and what's changed? They were there for the money.
They keep making life harder for certain people. Like when you do this gender pronoun training, what I'm going to get is people like, I can't leave the house anymore without somebody like they, theming my wife and I when we go somewhere, or sir, or he, himing. Like, no, we're lesbians. Y'all always knew we were lesbians. There was never an issue figuring out that we were lesbians. And now we're a plethora of people. Now, when this becomes dangerous is when you're stuck in a snowstorm, true story, in the middle of the night, it's freezing out, and the guy comes, the squad comes to pick you up, and they told me to turn left. They who? And I'm in my mind, I've been in the cold, I've been freezing my butt off in a snowstorm. I'm going, who they? Was there a group of people back there? Was there a group of cops that I'm not aware of? No. Oh, you're talking about my wife? As though she's a plethora of people. Now make that a real emergency involving an ambulance.
Yes.
This is dumb stuff we're doing here, people. Nobody had a problem knowing that, my wife was one person until recently. And now she's a whole grouping of people. And that's going to confuse me when I've been sitting in the cold for 2 hours. So, the whole pronoun thing, and how many pronouns are we up to now? You've got people with fairy pronouns. You've got people with snowman pronouns. Michael pointed out the toaster pronoun. There's pronouns for everything. We're not exaggerating here.
No, not at all.
Really
I only do 3. I'm being somebody may be angry at me, but I will only do 3.
So how?
If you want to be gendered, I will call you he or she. If you want to be gendered, if you don't want to be gendered, I will call you they. I don't mind. Otherwise, I'm not doing other pronouns.
I once wrote an article
gendered
trying to
or
use
not.
they.
That's all you get from me. If you want something else, then I'll call you by your name, or we won't talk. Those are the options you have. You can be gendered or not. I don't care if you don't be gendered, but that's how I work. I'm fine if you want to be called they. I don't mind that. I will ungender you if you don't want to be gendered. Up to you, or I'll gender you, or I'll use your name, or we won't talk.
Try using these.
All those are okay.
Try using these pronouns.
I'm not going to because I'm not gay. So I'm not going to.
I know I've separated that. It's Ho and Mo.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Ho went to the store. Mo needed to pick up some stuff. Practice it, guys. Practice
I'm going to not do that.
Try using that in a split-second emergency, though.
Yes.
Or even referring to people as a plethora of people in an emergency. It's not going to work very well. If a cop is like, let me call in, let me check first with the gender. They are running on, now you've already disqualified people from figuring out who is running. Is it a male? Is female? Like who's running? They're running. A group of people? This is not logical stuff here.
That's my point. I think it hurts. It hurts communication when someone focuses so much. And I tell my daughters this, right? I say, look, you should be proud of who you are, right? If you do good things, whoever you are, and you should be proud of your gender, of your sexuality, of your race, of all these things. But if that's the number one thing that you care about, the number one thing is what you were born, you haven't achieved anything.
Yeah.
Right? You should be proud of whatever you're born. Everybody is. We are who we are, and that's great. But you should try to achieve something. That's what you should be proud of. I'm an award-winning writer. I ran for a governor. I've been doing political science for 17 goddamn years. Whatever, any of those things, right? So those are things you've achieved and you've done. You should be proud of those things, right? So I'm with you. I just think that when we start focusing so much on that we stop communicating. Because now, again, I self-censor. Now, if I see you, I'm worried. If I call Julia her or him, now she's mad at me. So maybe I shouldn't talk to her. Because it's already awkward. We are spending so much time texting each other.
Larry, it's Ho and Mo. It's not that difficult.
It's true. It's true. Yes.
But Larry, and you guys can tell me if you think I'm wrong, but part of the reason is we're not supposed to talk. We're not supposed to have the communication or the interactions. Okay. We're supposed to feel like I'm the only one. I'm isolated. No one else in the world feels like I do, especially if you're talking about social media. If you're not that group that's been approved, you are alone. You're by yourself. You're helpless and hopeless. Don't talk to anyone. And the only answer to that, because we are a communal creature, we're human beings. We're like ants and bees. We want to be in a community. And the only way to not be in this feeling ostracized is to suddenly conform and obey without question ever again. That's Davos. That's whether it's climate change or gender or whatever it is they want to point out in this whole woke field. It's all about that control. You didn't do it. You're on the outside. You're by yourself. And by the way, we're going to suppress everyone so you'll never know there's another person that thinks like you do. Screw you. Otherwise, you obey.
Censorship. Censorship.
Yes, absolutely.
Like
Craig brings up the
mRNA
point about
stuff. Oh, did I say something wrong?
No worries.
Did I bring up a taboo subject?
Similar to white wokesters telling Hispanics that they are Latinx or Latinx or Latinx.
Don't get my wife started on that one, Larry.
That's insane.
Is she Hispanic?
She's Chilean, and she will school people on that one.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't know. You tell me, JD, or even Travis. Do you guys know anyone who's Hispanic, Latin, that has ever called themselves or anyone else Latinx?
Not a one.
I can tell you, in my family,
I do.
You'll get into fighting.
Larry
I know one. I know one, but the person's is a famous actor.
Really?
And they do it to be woke.
There you go.
They do it to be woke.
Yes.
So I know one.
The job.
There's an actor who's famous who wants to do it to be famous. I know one, but no like regular person Hispanic. Not one. No, not one. None of them want it. But or gay people who want folks with the X. I don't know any gay people who want folks with. Have you ever heard that one before?
I've heard it, and I know not a single person who wants to be called folks.
None. Okay, I've never met a gay person who wants to be called folks with an X. Not one.
It's because it's this stuff that's tagged itself on, right? It's the stuff that's tagged itself on. So I know a lot of gay and lesbian people. We're just the OG gangsters over here. We're like, but now you've got this whole tag along a lot of straight people. And they're folks, or they're queer. They identify as queer. You don't identify into my slur.
That still blows me with that. I actually know people. They're actually other people's friends. Like I know of them. I don't know them well. I've met them, but I don't know them. They're not my friends who identify as queer. And I know they're just straight guys. They're just straight guys.
This right? Is
but to be a straight guy not in my world, right? My age range, that doesn't exist. But if you're in your 20s, that's a thing. If you're in your teens or 20s, it's a thing because you don't want to be the regular straight person because that's boring. So you gotta be something. There was a meme on TikTok maybe a couple months ago that said, "Hey, what? Hold on. What disability can I claim that I can still use so I can use slurs?" And it was a joke, but it was real. Like, I want to be a disability, so I got to find one. So what's my disability? I got to come up with one so I can use slurs. This goes back, but you guys may remember, this is back in the maybe 90s when Seinfeld was on. There was a Seinfeld episode where a guy wanted to tell Jewish jokes, but he couldn't because he wasn't Jewish. So he converted to Judaism so he could become a comedian telling Jewish jokes. So that's right. Are we there now? Does Seinfeld tell the future?
Can identify into anything now. Travis, you could identify into queer, apparently. And you could start off with as a queer man.
As a queer Jewish man with white guy dreadlocks.
Uncircumcised.
Yes.
You keep remembering that joke. I'm glad you remembered the joke. Thank you.
You make good jokes, man.
Thank you. And my favorite joke about the Seinfeld episode that Larry's referencing is that when Jerry goes to a priest to tell him about his dentist who had converted to Judaism so he could make Jewish jokes, the priest asked him, "And this offends you as a Jewish person?" And Jerry said, "No, it offends me as a comedian." And that's kind of where we're at.
That is very good. I so love it. It offends me as a comedian. That's good. I don't care how I'm Jewish, but just, it is pretty bad. I agree. But go ahead.
No, I was thinking, I'm not sure if we have to wrap up soon, but I do have an exciting announcement. I know Michael kind of stepped away there, but I am happy to announce that I do identify as a toaster. I have identified as a toaster, ladies and gentlemen, and it's because I always love holding up a glass of something special and toasting anyone who is around me. And that's how you get to know people better. Cheers.
Toast.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers,
I love
queers.
Awesome.
We're all queers now.
We're all queer now.
I can say it.
So let me, if I could, did I miss anything today? Is there something you wanted to chat about that I might have missed before we wrap this up?
Oh, you know, we could talk for hours, Larry.
I know, but it is getting late and I am an old man. So we do have to eventually go to bed. We do have to eventually. But I do want to say something, guys. If you like this show, then do me a favor. Click that like button. It does matter. You might think it doesn't, but it really does. If you are on Twitter, please retweet the show. Let people know that it matters. So please retweet this show if you would. And please like. And more importantly, though, please follow these people. They came up tonight and give us 2 hours of great conversation. So follow Travis at Travis Irvine USA. Please follow Mike at MB Consult. And please follow Julia at Julia D. Robertson. Guys, I want to say thank you so much for coming tonight. Mike, do you want to say something on the way out? Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I stepped away, but I was still listening. Travis, you had to say the joke when I stepped away. I love it. It was great. It's funny, but it's real. It's real, but I loved it. That was great.
So, guys, I want to thank you all for watching. All of you who've been watching tonight, thank you so much for all the content, all the comments. I will be back on tomorrow, 1 p.m., talking about New York and WYSL, and I'll be on Kennedy tomorrow night at 7 p.m. If you want to watch live on Kennedy's show on Fox Business News. I will see you all.